Hi, welcome to this new video. This is something that occurred to me the other day when I was on my bike. It was about the advantages and disadvantages of living in the countryside, in a rural area. Something I've touched on in another video, and I thought that maybe we could explore it a bit more because it's something that comes up in exams. So the advantages and disadvantages of living in a rural area, in a town or in a small town or in a village. And I would say a distinct advantage and a main advantage for me is the sense of community that once you integrate with people, if you make the effort to integrate with people, the reward is that you feel part of that community. You get invited to things, you see things, you learn the culture of the area. Another one would be access to the town hall when you need to get some paperwork done, when you have some bureaucracy or red tape, access to public health, to the health centre, which I think, we avoid the queues by living in a smaller area, whereas if you live in a city, maybe a downside would be the amount of time you have to spend queuing. Another distinct advantage, in my opinion, is public amenities. For example, my son plays football, and here each town has a football pitch. So each team, each club has a football pitch, whereas in the big city, 2 or 3 clubs might very well share just one football pitch, which then can cause problems with timetabling, and people play at city hours very early in the morning or very late in the afternoon. Whereas here, we can play, or our kids can play games at a reasonable hour. A very important one, or a very big advantage, a very big upside, is the lower cost of living. You can have a house here for the price of a flat or an apartment in a city. Things in general are cheaper in the community, in a small community. A point that's often mentioned is it's safer. There's less crime. I would say another pro coming from that is the peace and quiet. I like my peace and quiet. I like to be able to go out and we don't have noise pollution. A downside and a big drawback to living in a city is noise pollution. I've heard it said, and I think studies have shown that people suffer depression, anxiety, have problems with their mental health because of noise pollution. Whereas here in the countryside, we have the birds singing in the trees, which is lovely. Another upside is the public spaces. It's not crowded. You go to the park and you can sit and contemplate life. Whereas in a big city, even the parks seem to have a lot of people in them. I suppose, with having considered the benefits, the pros, and the advantages, I suppose we should consider the disadvantages, the drawbacks, the downsides. Which, where we say on the one hand and on the other hand. So on the other hand, let's consider the downsides. One that's often mentioned is lack of cultural activities. That we don't have access maybe to operas, to theatres, to those different types of cultural events, museums, art galleries and so on. But then my argument would be, my counter to that would be, well, we can just get in a car and drive there. For example, I'm going to go to a punk rock concert with my daughter soon, to a group that I didn't see when I was growing up in the 80s, but I'm now going to go and see. But I'm going to drive to a nearby city to see them. Other downsides that people mention are that there's a sense of isolation, that you lack privacy because you're in this small community and everybody knows your business, which is a good point. Another one, there are less job opportunities. That's quite a drawback, isn't it? The fact that there are less job opportunities, that if you want a job that maybe you would have to go and live in a city to get that job. I suppose all things considered, and I've had experience of living in both. And I suppose for my context, at my age and my style of life and my lifestyle, I think I would have to say that the advantages of living in a rural area in a town, in a small town, far outweigh the disadvantages, which for me are very few. But then each to their own, and everybody has their own opinion. Okay, well, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, don't do anything. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye.